Ramchal's Daas Tevunos, the way he wrote it was a dialogue between the Seichel and the Neshama. The Neshama says to the Seichel, I believe in the 13 Animamins, but that's an article of faith. I believe in them, but I understand only 9. Therefore, that I don't understand, I need to understand them. We talked about this many times, that you need to understand these things. That's the Ramchal Shita and the Shita of many, many great people. From the Pasuk, in other psukim, it means that you just don't believe in things. You need to understand how they work, to the extent a human being can, each person on his level. And so the Seichel says, Neshama, where are your 4 problems? And the Neshama said, my problems are hashgacha, that God's actually managing, supervising the world every second. Chas v'sholom, it looks like out there there's chaos. It looks like things are running wild. The second issue is, excuse me, the second issue is schar v'onesh, reward and punishment. Doesn't look like that's functioning to the naked eye properly. Bias Mashiach, tchias hamesim. I believe in these things, but I don't understand them logically. And we're up to now, the Sefer begins with the very foundational principle that God created the whole world. The Yesod Asher Nivna Lo Kol Habinyan, God created a perfectly imperfect world so that we can join in creation, become a partner in creation, and make the right choices through Bechira, and those choices lead to perfecting ourselves and perfecting the world. And that's why we have this system. This is about the system by which God runs the world. He started a system in which it's a perfectly imperfect world, so that inside that world there's a system by which you can perfect it, perfect yourself. And through that, you will get reward and punishment. What is the tachlis, the goal of this whole thing? I'm saying this now because I want to avoid a kasha that we don't have time to go in today. There are people that ask a kasha, and a Friedlander, whose version of the Daas Tevunos version means we're using this print of the Daas Tevunos, the green book. There are burgundy books by the Mechon Ramchal. We're using the Friedlander Daas Tevunos with his commentary on it. That's what I mean when I say Friedlander's version. Friedlander addressed a question that was asked. In some place, it seems the Ramchal says the tachlis of the Bria, the purpose of the Bria is lehetiv. God wants to do good. He wants to bestow good on creatures, on creation. So he created, because if there's no creation, then there's nowhere to bestow good. So God, the whole purpose of the creation is that God can bestow goodness on his creation. Here we're going to learn about the purpose of creation is Gilui Hayichud. So what is it? What's the purpose of creation? We'll get to what Gilui Hayichud is in a moment, generally speaking. But what is it? Is the goal, the purpose of creation, so that God can bestow goodness? Or is the goal of creation that God can reveal his yichud? So that's something that Friedlander deals with. And perhaps we'll take a look at that next week, at least part of it. It's a very long mimer of Friedlander. But for us today, I'm distinguishing between 2 things. The system is created so that inside the system you can perfect yourself, and by perfecting yourself, you perfect the world on some level. Every person that perfects himself or works towards perfection, he's working towards perfecting the whole world. Okay, you're not on a ship by yourself. This is a planet, and everybody's in this together. The famous Yerushalmi gives a mashal about a person that bought a ticket on a ship, and he takes his seat on the ship, and he takes a drill, whatever, a tool he takes a drill, and he starts drilling a hole under his seat. The person sitting next to him says, "What are you doing?" And he says, "What do you mean, what are you doing? It's my seat. I can do anything I want on my seat, under my seat, or on top of my seat. I bought this seat for this trip." The person says to him, No, we're all in the ship together. If you break a hole under your seat, well, the whole ship is going to sink. So that's the idea of Klal Yisrael. We're all on one ship. Someone makes the ship a better place. It's a better place for everyone. Someone damages the ship. He damages the ship for everyone. So when we talk about perfecting ourselves, we're talking about perfecting a whole world, because we're part of this world. I'm not talking about globalization. Okay? I'm talking about we're part of a bigger world. So we perfect ourselves, we perfect the world as well. So that's the system. There's a system. System is God created a world, and it runs on a system by which it's an imperfect, perfectly imperfect world so that you can have an opportunity to perfect it. That's how the system operates. Now we have a new question. Why did God create the system altogether? Who needs a system? And in that, going back to the system, inside that system, you perfect yourself. Now God can bestow good upon you. This is all questions that deal with what's going on in the system. Why did God even create such a system? What's the purpose of the system? First, a person has a purpose of doing something. And when he figures out what the purpose is, he then goes and creates a system to accomplish his purpose or objective. A person has an objective. He then says, this is the objective. What system, what order, what Seder do I need to use to accomplish my objective or accomplish my purpose? We've been talking till now for our purposes today, so I can distinguish between the yichud and the hatava. Hatava means God wants to bestow good. That is a question that deals with inside the system. Once the system's been created, it's a perfectly imperfect system, so you can perfect. God can bestow good on the person and on the universe. Fine. What was the original purpose and objective of even creating the system? And that's what we're going to deal with today for a few minutes. We're on page Yud of the Daas Tevunos. And at the top part of the page, about a third way down, it says in bold, and this is putting in words. He's putting in captions. This is not the Ramchal. Friedlander, as he printed the Sefer, as he worked on the Sefer to get it printed, he put in captions. Friedlander's caption is Gilui Yichud Hashem, revealing the Yichud of Hashem is the Yesod HaBriya. It's the foundation of creation. In smaller letters beneath that is a subcaption, and that too was written by Rav Friedlander. And the subcaption says, Mikol Maaseh Hashem, from everything that God does in the world, Mizbarer Yichudo Bilvad Bebiru Gomo. That's clearly understood. The only thing that's clearly, very clearly understood is God's Yichud, which for now we'll call his uniqueness. Ush'am Ma'alosov, and God's other quote unquote qualities. It's just because we have no words. I spoke about this yesterday. We have no words because we don't understand. We cannot talk about God's wisdom. And that's what Yichud is. We'll see that in a moment. You can't talk about anything else about God other than he's unique. Because we can never understand this. We can never understand the full concept that we're talking about. Therefore, we're not allowed to talk about it. Amar HaSeichel. So in Lamed Daled, the Seichel addresses the Neshama. Now that we have accepted in our hearts the Seder of the way God created the world, which we talked about yesterday, the process, not the God's Big Bang. He did it in 6 days. This is a fantastic statement. Everything that's happened from the moment God created the world, and everything that is happening, and everything that the prophets have told us will happen, every detail of that history and the past and the present and the future, every detail of from the time of creation through the end, through Bias Mashiach, and through eternity, there's only one purpose to the whole thing. Creation, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, Bilhah, Zilpah, the 12 Shvatim, the Beis HaMikdash, Matan Torah, everything, every event, and the minutest detail in every event has only one purpose. In Imashin is Bar Lona Mikol Zeh Biru Gomer, the one thing that has to become clear to us from all these events, and that's how we study these events, and that's the lessons we need to draw from these events. The root lesson, there may be a lot of things to learn from events, but the root lesson from every single event, who Otzem Yichudai Yisbar, is to reveal and understand the greatness of Yichuda. Now, we're going to do some Chumash today, but I'll just briefly explain Yichud, because this is, if not the central, one of the most central concepts that the Ramchal develops in all his Svarim, the Yichud. We spoke about this a bit yesterday. You say God, Rebbeinu Shalom, he's unbelievably wise. He's a chacham. Okay, now that leads me to a question. Just how smart is God? Depends how your mind works. He's a million Einsteins, chas v'sholom. He has the knowledge of a million Einsteins. The depth of his understanding is deeper than a million theories of relativity. The equations that you see on these boards, the mathematician, the physicist that go on 6 blackboards, God can do an equation on a million blackboards. You're not allowed to talk about such things, because whatever you're going to say is going to detract chas v'sholom from who God is. How powerful is God? Oh, powerful. A million times more powerful than all the nuclear weapons in the world. You don't like that? We'll make it 2 million times more powerful than nuclear weapons. You still don't like that? Okay. He's a million times more powerful than the worst weapons that will ever come into the world. You can't talk like that. No matter what you're going to say, you're going to be detracting. And that's the pasuk in Tehillim that the Ramchal quoted in our learning yesterday. Mi yamalel gevuras Hashem yashmir kol tilasei. Who can utter God's praise? And if you think you can utter God's praise, yashmir kol tilasei, then say it all. Explain it to me. You want to say that God's wise? I want you to explain to me just how wise he is. You want to say he's powerful? Continue. Tell me how powerful he is. And as we mentioned yesterday, the Gemara says in Brachos, Alamed Gimel Lamed Beis, it's also Gemara Megillah. The Gemara says, we're not allowed to even say in Shemona Esrei, Gadol, Gibor, and Nora. You're not allowed to say that. If you say Gadol, he's great. How great is he? Tell me how great he is. Gibor, mighty. How mighty is he? Explain it to me. No, but he's awesome. What makes him awesome? Tell me, how awesome is he? We're not allowed to even say those words. So why do we say those words? The Gemara says we got permission to say those words. Because Moshe Rabbeinu in Devarim, the Chumash Devarim said, Gadol, Gibor, Nora. Now, of course, Moshe Rabbeinu understood much more about God than we do. But because he used those words, and the words are written in the Torah, that means it's permissive language. I have permission to say God, Hakel, Hagadol, Hagiba Vanoira. I'm allowed to say those words. I got a heter to say those words because Moshe Rabbeinu said it in the Torah. If he didn't say it, I couldn't even say those words. So I have that heter. Otherwise, otherwise, don't even start because you don't know what you're saying and you couldn't ever finish. So whenever we want to talk about the Rebbeinu Shalom, we can't talk about the qualities, quote unquote, of the Rebbeinu Shalom because we don't know what we're talking about. What we can say is we can talk about Yichudai. I can say God's a Chacham. Okay, what's his Chachma? It's unique. No one understands it. God's a Gibor. You tell me about his Gibor. I can't. Yichud. It's so unique. Nobody can talk about it. So this concept of Yichud, he's the only one this way. He's the most unique this way, is something that's like an umbrella over everything. He's a Chacham, yeah, but he's a Meyuchad Chacham. We can't talk about it. He's a Gibor, yes. What does it mean? I can't talk about it. Yichud. And this is true. It's an umbrella concept for everything. Anything you're going to talk about God, you stop short and say, I can't describe it because of Yichud. And what the purpose of all events from the creation of the world until the end, Bias Mashiach, Tchias HaMeisim, V'chulei, every detail and every event The root of the event is to reveal God's yichud. And that's how we have to learn to look at the world. How is God revealing his uniqueness, his yichud to the world? And when the world understands this idea of gilu yichud, and we all begin to look at world events as every detail in every event is to God revealing his uniqueness, and we begin to look and focus at the uniqueness, and we try to think about the uniqueness, that is the Gilui HaYichud is the purpose of the world, and the Gilui HaYichud either brings Mashiach, or when there's enough Gilui HaYichud, Mashiach will come and teach us the full concept that we can understand the Gilui HaYichud. But the Gilui HaYichud, the revelation, revealing God's uniqueness, Bayomahu Yia, V'hoya Hashem L'melech al kol haaretz, Bayomahu Yia Hashem Echad, Ushmo Echad. We always define that to mean, and on that day God will be one. The Gemara in Psachim asks, and before that day, before Mashiach comes, he's not one, there are multiple gods. What do we say when we say in Al Kei Nekava 3 times a day, V'hoya Hashem L'melech al kol haaretz, Bayomahu, on that day when Mashiach comes, Yia Hashem Echad, God will be one. And before Mashiach comes, there's God to be more than one? It doesn't mean that. The Gemara has a different answer. But Bayomu Yashem Echad, on that day God will be one, means that he is so unique that we will recognize he's the only one. There's nothing like him in the world. Not that there's a second God, but there's nothing like him in the world. There's no Chacham like him. There's no Gibor like him. There's nothing to compare him to. And we'll see Hashem next week as we go further into the Gilui HaYichud, that the wisdom and God's power does not come from what we think wisdom and power is. So for example, for us, how do we gain wisdom? We can gain wisdom by living life, and we gain experiences. Those experiences make us smarter. That's an external form of learning. I see something, I hear something, I experience something, it makes an impression on me, and I become smarter. I can take a book out and read it. That information seeps into me, I became smarter. I can go to a shiur, I hear the shiur, I absorb the shiur, it can make me smarter, etc., etc. Human beings learn through external sources and internalize the sources. God doesn't have any external sources. Because God forbid, when a person starts thinking about God has external sources, that means God's getting smarter as time goes on. God has no experiences. In other words, God's doing a better job today running the world than he did 5,000 years ago because he has 5,000 years more experience. After all, if you do something for 5,000 years, you get better at it, right? So we do something for 5 years. So we say, after 5 years, I'm finally getting it right. I'm doing it right. I've been doing it for 5 years. They say he's getting better at the job, chas v'shalom. He's been doing this now for over 5,000 years. He's finally getting it better. Well, again, going back to the beginning of Daas Tevunos, if God's doing this for 5,000 years and I just look at the outside world, doesn't look like he's doing a better job. Chas v'shalom, it looks like the place become utter chaos here. So chas v'shalom, we start thinking about, is God getting better on the job? Is he learning more about us? Does he know us better? As Lublin gets older, God gets to know Lublin better. Yeah, is God getting to know me better because I'm getting older and therefore we've been having a relationship for longer? What does it mean? You can't talk in these terms. God doesn't learn through experience, and God doesn't learn from a book. New books come out. God's reading the books. He gains knowledge. It's crazy. God's knowledge is inherent and internal in him. He acquires nothing from the outside. And we can't understand that. Lo machshavosai machshavosechem, the Rambam says, we can't understand this at all. Therefore, if we only even focus on Chacham, God's wisdom, we don't know what we're talking about because all our wisdom is externally acquired and then internalized. God has no external acquisition. He doesn't acquire anything from the outside and internalize it. So we don't understand what we're talking about even when we say Yichud. I'm sorry, when we say Chacham. What we can say is, oh, God's Chachma, that's so unique. You know why it's unique? because I need external sources to internalize, to make myself smarter. God's inherently smart. He knows everything from the beginning, the past, the present, future. He knows it all. How does he know it all? Because he just knows it. It's in him. Yeah, but you can't have it in you. You have to learn from something. No, no, no. It's all in God. Now explain that. I can't. That's the yichud. And this yichud is going to be the umbrella for all the midos. And the purpose of all creation is to be megala the yichud. And once there's that purpose of creation, they needed a system in the creation. And that system becomes the subject also of the Daas Tevunos. And it's in that system where God is able to be mative with the Brias by them making the right choices to perfect themselves in a perfectly imperfect world.